The jacket of a stranger. The night was unusually cold in downtown Los Angeles. City lights shimmered on puddles from an earlier rain, and the wind carried a biting chill that made even the most hardened street vendors pack up early. It was the kind of night when people rushed to get indoors to find warmth, to find comfort, but not everyone had a place to go. On the corner of 6th and Spring Street, under the awning of a closed bakery, a young woman sat curled up on the cold concrete. Her body shivered beneath a thin blanket that barely covered her knees. Beside her was a stroller, old and scratched with one wheel wobbling. Inside the stroller lay a tiny baby wrapped in a faded towel. The woman looked no older than 22. Her clothes were worn out, her shoes had holes in them, and her stomach showed she was heavily pregnant. People passed by. Some glanced at her and then looked away. Others crossed the street to avoid her completely. She didn't ask for help. She just sat there silently, humming a lullaby to her baby, her lips trembling from the cold. At the same time, a man was walking, alone a few blocks away. He wore a simple hoodie, jeans, and sneakers. His hood was up and most people didn't notice him. He looked like any other man trying to stay warm. But this was not just any man. It was Keanu Reeves. Keanu had just finished a late-night shoot nearby. Instead of taking his car, he decided to walk and breathe in the night air. He liked the silence of the streets after hours. It reminded him of the moments in life that go unnoticed by the world, those quiet moments that reveal the truth about people and about humanity. As he turned the corner, he saw her. The young woman, the baby, the blanket. Something in his heart tugged. He slowed down. He didn't know her. He didn't know her story. But he knew that look in her eyes. The look of someone who had been let down too many times. He stepped closer, gently, not wanting to startle her. She noticed his shadow and looked up, eyes wide and cautious. She tried to pull the blanket tighter around her belly, shielding herself. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "We're not bothering anyone. We'll move if we have to." Keanu crouched down, his eyes soft and calm. "You're not bothering me," he said quietly. "You look cold." She didn't reply. She looked away. A tear slid down her cheek. She quickly wiped it, not wanting to seem weak. Without another word, Keanu stood up, took off his jacket, warm, thick, lined with fleece, and gently draped it over her shoulders. Then he bent down again and tucked it around the baby too. He adjusted it so that both mother and child were covered. "Why are you doing this?" she asked in disbelief. "Because no one else did," he answered. For a few moments they sat there in silence. The wind blew around them, but it no longer reached her skin. The jacket was warm. It smelled like leather and a faint hint of cologne. It was the warmest she had felt in weeks. "What's your name?" Keanu asked. "Lily," she replied softly. "This is Mia. She's 4 months old. And, well, I have another one on the way." Keanu gave a small smile. "They're lucky to have you." Lily looked at him stunned. "Lucky? We sleep on the street. I don't even know how we'll eat tomorrow." Keanu paused, then looked into her eyes. "They're lucky because you're still trying. Because you're still holding on." Just then, a loud crash echoed from across the street. A garbage bin had been knocked over. A group of teenagers were laughing and running off. One of them noticed Lily and shouted something cruel about homeless people. They disappeared into the night. Lily flinched. Her hands shook. "They always do that," she said. "Throw things, call us names, like we're not even human." Keanu stood up and looked in the direction the boys had run. His jaw tightened, but he didn't chase them. Instead, he turned back to Lily. "Do you have anywhere safe to go tonight?" he asked. "The shelters are full," she said. "They always are. They say to try again tomorrow." Keanu nodded slowly. Then he reached into his back pocket and pulled out his phone. He made a call. "Hey," he said. "It's me." "Yeah, I need a favor. Do we still have that guest room at the center?" A pause. "Good. I need someone to come get a mother and her baby, right now. 6th and Spring. Lily blinked. What are you doing? Helping, he replied. 15 minutes later, a black SUV pulled up. A woman in her 40s stepped out. She was warm, kind-faced, and introduced herself as Mary. Keanu called me, she said to Lily. We run a recovery shelter for women and children. It's safe, warm, and we can help you get back on your feet. Lily didn't move. She looked at Keanu with a mix of fear and confusion. Why would you do this? You don't even know me. Keanu knelt down again. Because someone helped me once, when I didn't deserve it, and that changed everything. Lily looked down at her baby. Mia stirred slightly under the jacket. Lily nodded slowly. With Mary's help, Lily climbed into the SUV. As the car pulled away, she turned and looked back. Keanu was still standing there, his hoodie pulled tight, his hands in his pockets. She didn't know who he was. Not really. She didn't recognize the actor. To her, he was just a man who saw her pain and didn't look away. But what she didn't know yet, what would change everything, was that this moment was just the beginning. This act of kindness would lead to something much bigger, much more powerful than she could ever imagine. Because Keanu wasn't done. Not even close. He had seen something in Lily's eyes. Something he couldn't ignore. And deep in his heart, he had made a silent promise. He would find out who she was. He would uncover what had brought her here. And he would change her life, even if it meant risking his own peace to do it. The secret behind her eyes, the morning sunlight broke through. The heavy city haze as Lily stirred in the soft sheets of a real bed for the first time in months. For a moment she forgot where she was. Her hands instinctively reached for her baby, and when her fingers touched the soft warmth of Mia's tiny body resting beside her, she let out a breath of relief. Mia was still there. They were still together. But the cold sidewalk was gone. The stench of garbage, the threat of drunk strangers, and the screams of sirens had all been replaced by a quiet hum. Running water in a nearby bathroom, birds outside a closed window, and the soft footsteps of someone making breakfast downstairs. The room smelled faintly of lavender. A blanket thick and soft was draped across her legs. There was a nightstand beside her with a lamp and a framed picture of a woman hugging 2 children. She realized it wasn't a shelter in the way she had known them. No rows of sleeping bags, no volunteers shouting through bullhorns. It felt more like someone's home. And for the first time in what felt like forever, she didn't feel like a burden. As she sat up, her stomach reminded her she was still pregnant. The baby inside kicked gently, and she instinctively placed her hand over her belly. She whispered, "It's okay now. We're safe. For now." Downstairs, Mary was on the phone, speaking in a low voice with someone familiar. It was Keanu. "She's awake," Mary said. Still a little guarded, but she slept through the night. She didn't ask for anything, didn't even cry. Keanu, still in his small downtown apartment, nodded into the receiver. "Good. Just make sure she knows there's no pressure. Let her decide when she's ready to talk." Mary hesitated. "You really want to get involved in this, don't you?" "I already am. You don't even know her story." "That's exactly why I need to hear it." Keanu had always believed that true kindness required patience. He'd seen people offer help and then disappear when it got complicated. He had vowed never to be one of them. Something about Lily's silence, the way she protected her baby with her body, the way she didn't beg, didn't complain, didn't even look angry, haunted him. It wasn't just poverty, it wasn't just misfortune. It was something deeper, something that didn't belong on a sidewalk. It was the look of someone who had been hurt and then blamed for surviving. Back at the house, Mary gently knocked on the door and stepped in with a tray. Toast, oatmeal, apple slices, and warm tea. Lily blinked at it, startled. "For me?" "Of course," Mary smiled. "We always feed our warriors." Lily looked away. "I'm no warrior." "You're alive, aren't you?" Mary said softly. "That means you fought something and won." Lily didn't answer. Instead, she stared at the food, debating whether she was allowed to eat it. Mary placed the tray down and said gently, "Eat what you can. The rest will still be here if you want more." Later that afternoon, Mary sat with Keanu in a nearby cafe. She updated him, but her tone shifted as she leaned in. "There's something else. I checked her name in the system. Lily Brooks. She's not just any homeless girl, she went missing 2 years ago." Keanu's brow furrowed. Missing? She was reported by her high school teacher. Straight-A student, had scholarships lined up. Then one day, she just disappeared. Keanu's heart sank. He asked, "Did they find out why?" "Not officially. The police looked for a few months, then assumed she ran away. But there were signs. Hospital records, a broken arm, no follow-up visits. A neighbor had reported loud fights in her home more than once, but no one connected the dots." Keanu stared at his coffee. He imagined Lily, 17 years old, full of promise, and yet trapped, forgotten, judged. "And now she's on the street," he said bitterly. "Pregnant, with a baby." Mary nodded. "It's worse. She never collected the scholarship. She had no bank activity, no phone record. It's like she erased herself." Keanu leaned back in his chair, rubbing his face with both hands. She didn't erase herself. Someone made her feel like she had no other choice. The next day, Keanu returned to the house. He didn't knock. He simply waited in the small garden until Mary came to get him. Lily was hesitant at first when she saw him. She held Mia close, like a reflex, and kept her distance. He didn't approach. Instead, he sat across the room in a soft chair and simply smiled. "Hi," he said gently. "I'm glad you're okay." She stared at him, unsure. "Why are you really doing this?" Keanu leaned forward. "Because I believe people can start over, and because I've learned that sometimes the only thing standing between someone's fall and their rise is one person who refuses to walk away." Lily's eyes filled with tears, but she blinked them back. "Nobody's ever stayed long enough to hear my story. Then maybe today is different." And so, slowly, carefully, she began to speak. Her voice trembled at first. She talked about her home, a place where the yelling never stopped, where bruises were explained away as clumsiness, where no one believed her when she cried. She talked about her mother, silent and broken, who once whispered, "Just keep your head down." And then she talked about the night she ran, after he hit her so hard she blacked out, after no one came when she screamed, after the baby growing inside her made her realize she couldn't stay. She didn't remember how many nights she slept in alleyways. She stopped counting how many times people offered help only to expect something in return. She stopped trusting. She stopped talking. And then she had Mia, on a bathroom floor, alone. Keanu didn't interrupt once. He sat there, listening, not judging, not trying to fix it, just hearing her. When she finished, her shoulders collapsed, like she had finally put down a weight she'd carried for far too long. Keanu said only one thing. "You're not invisible anymore." That night, Lily couldn't sleep, not because she was afraid, but because for the first time hope had returned, and that was almost more terrifying than despair. She kept thinking, what if this is just temporary? What if they change their mind? What if kindness is just a trap? But the next morning when she walked downstairs, Keanu was there again. He had breakfast ready. He didn't ask questions. He didn't mention her past. He only smiled and said, "You ready to start something new?" She nodded. Her voice was barely audible. "I think so." And as she sat down to eat, not as a homeless girl, but as someone being seen for who she truly was, she didn't know yet that Keanu had already made a decision, one that would change everything. He wasn't just going to help her for a few days. He was going to make sure she never had to live like that again. And as the sun rose, casting a golden glow through the window, Lily whispered to her daughter, "Maybe, just maybe, this is where our story turns." The man who wouldn't walk away, the city had begun to thaw under the touch of spring. Even the trees along the sidewalks, bare for months, now wore light buds of green as if they, too, were waking from a long, cold sleep. For Lily, each sunrise now felt different. The fear that once gripped her chest each time she opened her eyes had started to loosen. She was still cautious, still waiting for the catch. But something inside her was shifting. It wasn't just safety that Keanu and Mary had given her. It was the dignity of being seen, of being treated like a person and not a problem. And yet, even as comfort crept back into her life, the wounds inside her hadn't fully healed. They ran too deep. But healing had begun. Keanu visited every morning without fail. He never knocked. He never asked for thanks. He'd sit at the kitchen table with Lily and Mia, listening patiently to Lily's soft words or sometimes just the silence between them. He'd bring warm muffins from a bakery he liked and coffee that he made a point to let her pour herself, like an equal. In time, Lily began to ask him questions about his life, about the movies she vaguely remembered, about the kind of man who would stop for a stranger on the street. He never talked about fame. He didn't bring up cameras or scripts. He spoke about growing up without his father, about the time he lost people he loved, about how pain taught him to stop judging others, because everyone carries something invisible. There were moments when Lily just sat and stared at him, wondering how a man who could have anything in the world had chosen to sit with someone like her. One afternoon, Mary walked into the room carrying a file. She looked serious, and her eyes darted to Lily with hesitation. Keanu noticed instantly. "What is it?" Mary hesitated, then handed him the file. "Social services called me back. They had flagged Lily's name in their archive. Someone filed a claim." Lily's body stiffened. She could feel a panic rising in her throat before Mary could explain. "Don't worry," Mary said quickly. "No one's trying to take Mia. That's not what this is." Keanu opened the file. There were papers, a photo, and a sealed letter. "Who filed it?" Mary lowered her voice. "A woman named June Brooks. She claims to be Lily's aunt." Lily's face went pale. She clutched Mia closer. "She's not my aunt. She's my father's sister. They haven't spoken in years. She only ever showed up when she wanted to borrow money." Keanu gently set the file aside. "Do you want to see her?" "No," Lily said immediately. "No, I don't trust her. If she's here, it's for something else." Keanu nodded. "Then we won't let her in." But the seed had been planted. Later that night, while the others slept, Lily crept down to the living room and opened the sealed envelope. Inside was a short letter written in careful handwriting. "Dear Lily, I know you won't believe me, but I didn't know what your father did to you. If I had, I would have come for you sooner. I've been looking for you since the news came out that he was arrested. They said you vanished. I thought you were gone forever. If you don't want to see me, I understand. But I'm not here to take anything from you. I want to give you something. Answers. Your mother left something behind for you. Something your father hid. I'm at the Greenleaf Center until Sunday. Ask for June. Please come. Just once." Lily read the letter again and again. Her hands trembled. Her mother. Her mother had died when Lily was 13, right before things at home became unbearable. She had always believed her mother's silence meant she didn't care, that she had abandoned her to face the storm alone. But now, there was something she never knew, something her father had buried with his fists and his lies. She couldn't sleep that night. Every time she closed her eyes, memories returned, some blurry, some sharp. The sound of her mother's voice singing to her as a child, the way she used to slip a small flower behind Lily's ear before sending her to school. The time her mother tried to pack a suitcase in the middle of the night and was stopped before the door could open. The next morning, Lily sat across from Keanu. She didn't eat. She barely sipped her tea. He noticed her silence but waited until she spoke. "I need to go somewhere," she said finally. "Alone." Keanu didn't argue. "Is it safe?" "I don't know." He paused. "Then I'm going. With you." She looked at him, half afraid, half relieved. "She says my mom left something. Something he didn't want me to find. Then we're going to find it." Later that day, they arrived at the Greenleaf Center, a quiet facility. near the edge of the city that helped people in crisis. June Brooks was waiting on a bench holding a small wooden box in her lap. She looked nothing like the last time Lily remembered. Older, tired, with a line of regret etched into her eyes. When she saw Lily approach, she stood up slowly, unsure whether to smile or cry. "You came," June said, her voice trembling. Lily stood still, her arms folded, Mia in a sling across her chest. "What do you want?" "Nothing," June said quickly. "I swear. I don't want your money or your forgiveness. I thought you should have this." She handed over the wooden box. It was smooth, faded and old. Lily took it, eyes locked on it like it might disappear. "Your mother gave it to me the week before she died," June said. "She said it was for you, but your father never let me give it to you. I kept it hidden. I thought maybe one day." Lily opened the box slowly. Inside were letters, dozens of them, folded and tied with a ribbon. There was also a necklace, a small silver heart, and a photo of her mother holding baby Lily in her arms. Keanu moved quietly beside her, watching her face as the past rose like a tide. Lily unfolded the top letter and read silently. "My sweet Lily, if you're reading this, it means I couldn't protect you the way I wanted. I tried. Oh, how I tried. But I wasn't strong enough to stop him. But you are. You are the light he couldn't put out. You are the love he never understood. And even if I'm gone, my love lives in you. Don't ever believe his lies. You are not broken. You are not weak. You are mine. And I was always proud of you." Lily's hands trembled as she dropped the letter. The tears she had held back for years came rushing out like a storm that could no longer be contained. She fell to her knees, clutching the box, the photo, the memory of a mother who had never truly left her. Keanu knelt beside her, one hand on her shoulder, offering nothing but presence. No words, just warmth. That night, back at the house, Lily sat with Keanu under the stars. She had read every letter. Each one filled holes in her heart that had ached for too long. "Why are you still here?" she asked him. He looked at her gently. "Because people once stayed for me when I didn't think I deserved it. Because love isn't something you have to earn." "I don't know what to do with all this," she said. "With hope." "Start with tomorrow," he said. "That's always a good place to begin." Lily smiled for the first time in a long time, a real unguarded smile. And as she rocked Mia to sleep under the moonlight, a plan was already forming in her mind. Something bigger than survival. Something that would not only rewrite her own story, but offer a new beginning to others like her. What she didn't know yet was that Keanu had already made the first step. He had filed a petition. He had spoken to his lawyers. He had already started building something that would turn Lily's hope into a future, and tomorrow, he would show her. The blueprint of second chances the next morning arrived like a quiet promise. Sunlight spilled into the little home with a gentle warmth that soaked through the curtains and touched everything softly, as if careful not to wake the sleeping. But Lily was already awake. She sat in the kitchen in silence, staring at her reflection in the dark glass of the microwave door. The wooden box was beside her on the table, the letters now carefully stacked, each one read and reread until the paper felt like skin. Her mother's words had built something in her overnight. Not a shield, but a seed. Something fragile, but alive. It was hope, yes, but also a question. What now? She didn't notice Keanu standing in the hallway watching her. He held a folder in one hand and a paper cup of tea in the other. When she finally looked up, startled, he smiled gently and handed her the tea before sitting down. "You okay?" he asked softly. Lily nodded but didn't speak. Keanu placed the folder in front of her. "I want to show you something, but only if you're ready." She opened the folder slowly. Inside were blueprints, architectural designs, some legal forms, and photos of a vacant property. An old school building with ivy growing over broken windows, cracked bricks, and rusted railings. At first she didn't understand. "What is this?" "A future," he replied. "I bought this place last year. It used to be a school. It's been abandoned for years. My original plan was to turn it into a creative studio for underprivileged kids, a place for film, music, art, a safe space. But lately, I've been thinking, what if it could be more? He leaned in slightly. What if it could be a home, not just for kids, but for women like you? Moms, survivors, girls who've been forgotten by the system. What if it could be a school again, but this time for life? Lily blinked, her hands resting lightly on the blueprints. I want you to help me build it, Keanu said. Not with bricks or money, with your story, your voice, your vision. Lily looked away, overwhelmed. Why me? Because the people this place will serve don't need another speech from someone who's never lived it. They need someone who's walked through fire and come out carrying water for others. Her breath caught. She wasn't used to being asked to lead. She was used to being moved out of the way. Keanu saw the fear in her eyes. I'm not asking you to fix the world, just to start with this. With us. Later that afternoon, Keanu took her to the building. It stood in the middle of a quiet neighborhood, long forgotten by investors and untouched by the kind of hope that redevelopments usually bring. Graffiti covered some of the brick walls, weeds crawled up the staircases, and pigeons had claimed the rooftop. But to Lily, there was something beautiful in its brokenness. It was like looking in a mirror and seeing not the damage, but the potential. Inside, dust hung in the air like memory. The ceilings were high, the halls long. Lockers lined the walls and faded paint still clung to old classroom doors. Lily walked through the building in silence, touching the walls with her fingertips, listening to the echoes of what it once was. This place has stories, she whispered. Keanu nodded. And it's waiting for new ones. They walked into what had once been a gym. Sunlight poured through the high windows, casting long golden rays across the scuffed floor. Lily turned to him and said quietly, I want a garden in the center courtyard, with benches, and a tree big enough for kids to sit under and read. Done, he smiled. And a nursery, she added, for babies like Maya, and their mothers. Done. And a room where people can just cry, she said suddenly. No judgment, no questions, just a quiet space. Keanu didn't hesitate. Absolutely. That night back at the house, Lily stayed up drawing sketches. She'd never been to design school, but she drew rooms, windows, furniture. She wrote ideas in the margins. Community kitchen, story-sharing wall, healing through art. And in the corner of one page, she wrote the words her mother had once whispered to her as a child. You are the light no one can dim. Keanu returned the next morning with his project manager and legal team. They all sat in the living room, drinking coffee and reviewing ideas. Lily sat silently for the first part of the meeting, unsure whether she belonged in such a conversation. But when one of the men referred to the place as a recovery center, Lily raised her hand. I'm sorry, but can I say something? Everyone turned. It shouldn't just be about recovery. That sounds like something broken that needs to be fixed. We're not broken. We're rebuilding. This place needs to feel like progress, not punishment. Keanu smiled, and the rest of the room nodded slowly. What would you call it? The manager asked. Lily thought for a moment, then said quietly, The Turning Point. That name stayed. Within a week, legal papers were filed. Contractors were brought in. Keanu invested his own money, but also called in friends, architects, donors, builders who believed in second chances. But he made one thing clear. Lily was the heart of the project. She would make the final decisions. Every detail had to pass through her lens, her experience. This wasn't charity, it was partnership, but not everyone was supportive. Soon, a reporter caught wind of the project and released a tabloid article titled, Movie Star Builds Home for Homeless Teen Mom. The article was shallow, dismissive, and full of stereotypes. It painted Lily as a sad case study, a charity mascot. She saw the headline and went quiet for an entire day. Keanu found her on the rooftop that evening, staring at the sky, Mia asleep on her chest. She didn't look at him. "I'm not ashamed of who I am," she said. "But I don't want to be someone's pity project." Keanu sat beside her. "You're not. You're a movement." She shook her head. "People like me. We're always used to inspire others, but we rarely get to live the story. I don't want to be a quote on someone's Instagram. I want to be in the room when decisions are made." "Then stay in the room," Keanu said. Louder, firmer. "Let them hear. You." The next day, Lily wrote an open letter to the media. She didn't write it as a victim. She wrote it as a voice. In it, she described the truth behind statistics, how women like her don't need saving. They need space. How what she needed wasn't someone to rescue her, but someone to listen, to stand beside her while she rebuilt. She ended the letter with one sentence that went viral. "I don't want your sympathy. I want your seat at the table." The world paid attention. Women's groups reached out. Educators, therapists, even people in politics. They all wanted to hear more from the girl who had slept on a sidewalk with a baby and now stood at the center of a movement. But just as the project reached momentum, something happened that would test everything Lily had built inside herself. A call came late one night. Mary answered it. Her face changed as she listened. When she hung up, she turned to Lily with sorrow in her eyes. "They're releasing your father." Lily froze. The room felt smaller, her breath shallowed. All the courage she had grown threatened to vanish. "He's getting out early. Time served. Good behavior," Mary said gently. "They say he's sick. They're transferring him to a halfway house." Keanu stood quietly behind them, his jaw tight. He didn't speak right away. Lily sat down slowly, clutching the letters, again like armor. She had told herself she was strong now, safe. But the news stirred the old shadows. "What if he comes back?" she whispered. Keanu stepped forward and placed a hand on her shoulder. "Then we'll face him, together." But Lily wasn't sure. Not yet. Her past was no longer just a story, it was a living thing, and it was walking back into her world. The storm she had to face, the house was quiet, but Lily's mind wasn't. After Mary broke the news about her father's release, it felt like the walls were moving inward. Even the air had changed. Heavier, harder to breathe. Lily sat on her bed in the dim light of her room, the same room where she had read her mother's letters and whispered promises to her daughter. Now that room felt unsafe. Not because of anything real or physical, but because memory had returned. Not the kind that fades in time, but the kind that sticks to your bones, that replays even when your eyes are wide open. She sat there for hours, unmoving. Mia was asleep in her crib beside her, peaceful, untouched by the fear her mother now carried again. The news that her father, James Brooks, was free after only a few years was not just painful. It was enraging. They said he was rehabilitated, that prison had corrected him. But Lily remembered his face. Not the angry one. The smiling one. The one he wore right before he hurt someone. That was the face she feared most. Downstairs, Keanu was pacing. He had stayed up with Mary to make calls. They spoke with their lawyer, with the shelter's board of directors, even with private security contacts. Everything was legal. Everything was prepared. But still, something about this felt like too much. Like too soon. And deep down, Keanu worried what this would do to Lily's mind. She had come so far. But trauma doesn't ask for permission to return. It just does. The next morning, Lily didn't come down for breakfast. By lunch, Mary went up and knocked. "Can I come in?" "Yes," Lily said, her voice quieter than usual. Mary stepped inside and sat across from her. "I know this isn't easy. I also know you want to disappear right now." Lily nodded slowly. "I keep thinking, what if he shows up? What if he comes near Mia?" Mary reached across the table and placed her hand gently over Lily's. "He won't. We won't let him." But more importantly, you need to know something. The law might not have protected you then, but it will now. And we will. Every single person in this house will. Later that evening, Keanu walked into the courtyard where Lily had been sitting for hours. She had a notebook open, but hadn't written a single word. He pulled a chair beside her. "Can I show you something?" he asked. She nodded, barely turning her head. He took out his phone and opened a video. It was grainy at first, but then came into focus. A group of volunteers standing beside the now cleared campus of the old school building. There were children laughing, women painting walls, people assembling furniture. In the middle of it all was a wooden sign with letters carved by hand. "The Turning Point. They started yesterday," he said. "We didn't want to move forward until you were ready. But they said they're building it in your name, with or without cameras. They just want to be part of it." Lily watched the screen, tears stinging the corners of her eyes. "What if I break again?" Keanu turned off the phone. "Then we'll rebuild again and again, as many times as it takes, because that's what healing really is." "I'm scared." "Good," he said gently. "Fear means you care. It means you have something to protect. Do you think I'll ever stop being afraid of him?" Keanu didn't rush an answer. "Maybe. Maybe not. But one day you'll stop letting that fear decide who you are. And when that day comes, he won't own any part of you anymore." 2 days later, the team received a letter from the halfway house. It was formal, cold, written in the same bureaucratic language that always ignored emotion. James Brooks was requesting visitation rights. Not for Lily. For Maya. It took all of 5 seconds for Lily to throw the letter across the room. "He doesn't get to pretend now," she snapped. "He didn't care about me. Why would he care about her?" The lawyer explained that it wasn't an automatic right. He would have to file in court. But the fact that he was trying shook something in Lily. "He's not coming near her," she said, fire rising in her voice. "I don't care if I have to sleep on the courthouse steps. I will never let him get close." Keanu placed a hand on her shoulder. "Then let's prepare." They started building a legal case. Testimonies, past medical reports, copies of the letters from her mother, even character witnesses. Mary contacted Lily's old school counselor, who remembered filing a report that was ignored. Slowly, they were assembling something powerful. Truth. And with it came something unexpected. Strength. The day of the hearing came faster than Lily expected. She wore a simple navy dress and carried Mia in her arms. As they entered the courthouse, reporters gathered outside, hoping for a story. But Lily didn't speak to them. She wasn't there to perform. She was there to fight. Inside the courtroom, the air was thick. Her father sat at the other end of the room, older now, thinner. But the moment Lily saw him, she felt the same knot in her stomach. The judge called the case. Arguments were made. Then Lily was called to testify. As she walked to the front of the courtroom, something happened that she hadn't expected. Her hands stopped shaking. She looked at her father for only a second, then turned to the judge. She told her story. She didn't cry. She didn't rage. She simply told the truth. About what he had done. About what her life became. And about what she was building now. He lost the right to call himself a father when he chose pain over protection, she said, and he will not have the chance to do the same to Mia. Keanu sat in the back row, hands folded, eyes steady on her. He didn't need to intervene. She didn't need saving. Not anymore. The judge ruled in her favor. The visitation request was denied. And just like that, a door that had haunted her for years finally began to close. Outside the courthouse, cameras waited. Reporters called her name. "Lily, do you have anything to say?" She looked at Keanu. He nodded gently. She stepped up to the microphones and said one thing. "My daughter will never grow up in fear, and neither will I." Then she walked away. That night, she sat with Mary and Keanu in the courtyard under strings of warm yellow lights. They were planning the final layout of the turning point. Paint colors, room names, opening dates. The sound of children's laughter echoed from inside where other women and kids had begun moving into temporary rooms. Lily took a deep breath. I want to teach, she said suddenly. Not in the traditional way, but I want to teach girls how to reclaim their story, how to stand up, how to keep walking. Keanu smiled. You already are. But Lily wasn't finished. And I want Mia to grow up knowing that her mother didn't just survive. She built something. Keanu reached into his jacket and pulled out a small box. Inside was a key. Not flashy, not symbolic. Just a key. This is yours, he said. To the building, to the project, to the future. It's yours now. Lily stared at the key in her palm. It was heavy, not in weight, but in meaning. It wasn't just access, it was ownership. But just as she began to speak, a knock came at the gate. A stranger stood there with a letter in hand. Are you Lily Brooks? He asked. Yes. This was left for you. She opened it, hands trembling again. The letter read, I know I wasn't the only monster in your life, and I wasn't the worst. But I did what they didn't. I saw your strength, and that's why I've come. There was no signature, just a name printed at the bottom, Emily Reinhardt. It was the name of the counselor from the shelter where Lily had stayed before disappearing for months. Someone Lily had believed betrayed her. Someone whose words had once pushed her back into the arms of danger. But now she had returned, and with her return came another truth Lily wasn't ready for. The letter that changed everything. Lily stood at the front gate, her hand trembling as she held the letter from Emily Reinhardt, the woman she thought she had buried in memory long ago. It wasn't just a name on paper. It was a door she had locked shut and thrown away the key to. Keanu and Mary both stepped forward when they saw her face. Keanu gently took the letter from her hands, but he didn't open it without her nod. She gave it slowly, her eyes never leaving the envelope, as if it might vanish before she got the answers that had haunted her since her life spiraled into the street. Keanu unfolded the letter and began reading aloud, his voice calm and even. Dear Lily, I failed you. I need you to hear that first before anything else. I failed you when you were 17, standing in front of me at the shelter, bruised, scared, and desperate. I saw everything in your eyes, but I didn't fight hard enough. I didn't believe my instincts over what the files said. And because of that, you left. And I never stopped regretting it. Your case was reviewed by a superior. They closed it in one meeting. I was told you were manipulative, unstable, and too difficult to help, but I never believed that. 3 months ago, I read an article about the turning point. Your name was in it, your story, your photo. I wept. I hadn't lost you. You were out there, building something beautiful. I'm not here to ask for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I kept something that belongs to you, something your mother gave to me years ago. She trusted me, and I failed her too. I want to give it to you now. Please meet me. Beneath the signature was an address, a quiet rehab center outside the city, where Emily now worked. Lily didn't speak for a long time. She simply stared at the gate, the sidewalk beyond it, the open sky above. Everything in her had learned not to trust. But there was something in those words, a rawness, a kind of truth you don't write unless it haunts you. Finally, she whispered, I'll go. The next day, Lily, Keanu, and Mary drove to the center. The road wound through quiet hills lined with dry trees and yellow grass. There was no city noise here, no sirens, no rush, just the soft hum of the tires and the sound of wind pressing against the windows. When they arrived, Emily was waiting at the front steps. She looked older, her hair streaked with gray, her face marked with years of regret and grief. But her eyes were the same, deep, tired, and searching. Lily stepped out first. For a moment, no one moved. Then Emily stepped forward, her hands shaking. Thank you for coming. Lily nodded slowly. You said you had something of my mom's. Emily reached into her coat and pulled out a small cloth bundle, tied carefully, with a faded ribbon. She handed it to Lily without a word. Lily opened it slowly, unfolding the cloth to reveal a notebook. Leather-bound, scratched, and old. It was her mother's journal. Lily's fingers froze. She hadn't seen it since she was 13. Her mother had written in it every night, but her father had ripped it from her hands one day during an argument and thrown it into a fire. Or so Lily thought, Emily explained. She gave it to me for safekeeping the night before she died. She said if anything happened to her, you would need it one day. I was supposed to give it to you years ago, but after the shelter review, they banned me from contacting you. I kept it hidden all this time. Lily sat down on the bench, her fingers trembling as she opened the first page. The handwriting was unmistakable, slanted, graceful, and full of feeling. Tonight, Lily sang to her dolls. She doesn't know I watched from the hallway. She still believes in good things. I need to hold on to that, even if I can't always protect her. I pray she never forgets how to dream. Page after page, her mother had written everything, not just about Lily, but about her own pain, her fears, her hopes, her secret plans to leave, her guilt, her love. As Lily read, her chest began to tighten, not with sadness, but with release. These words weren't just memories. They were proof. Proof that her mother saw her, that her mother tried, that love had always been there, hidden beneath the fear and violence of their home. She looked up at Emily. Thank you for keeping this. Emily nodded, tears streaking her face. I'm so sorry. Lily reached forward and, to everyone's surprise, hugged her. That night, back at the house, Lily sat with Keanu under the courtyard lights, the journal in her lap, a pen in her hand. She had added her own words, her own truth. She had started, writing not about the pain, but about the healing, about the women she met, the children, the new voices who walked through the doors of the turning point every day, carrying their own invisible storms. Keanu watched her with quiet admiration. You're building something permanent, he said, something that doesn't need cameras or headlines. She looked up, smiling. I'm not done. A few weeks later, the turning point held its opening ceremony. It wasn't grand. It wasn't filled with celebrities. It was filled with mothers, survivors, kids laughing, social workers, teachers. And at the center of it all stood Lily, holding Mia in one arm and her mother's journal in the other. When they asked her to speak, she stepped up to the microphone, calm and steady. I used to think I was the girl people forgot. Then I realized I was the girl people weren't ready for. I didn't break. I waited. And when the time was right, I returned with something stronger than pain. Purpose. She paused, scanning the crowd. Keanu stood near the back, hands in his pockets, watching her not as a hero, but as an equal. This place was born from one act of kindness. Not a donation, not a headline, just a warm jacket placed over my shoulders when the world had left me in the cold. It was a moment no one saw, but it changed everything. The crowd clapped, many in tears. But for Lily, the applause wasn't the reward. The real reward came that night, when a 17-year-old girl named Alina came to the front gate with a busted suitcase and bruised arms. She didn't say much, just stared at the building with quiet hope. Lily walked out, placed her arm around her and said, "You're safe now. You're not alone." And in that moment, she knew. This wasn't the end of her story. It was the beginning of everyone else's. Because of one act, because someone saw her, because Keanu Reeves refused to walk away.